Hey everyone, I just wanted to come on before the episode started real quick to give a quick trigger warning. We do talk about a few difficult topics, including sexual assault, rape, harassment, and our personal experiences with those topics. So if you're uncomfortable with any of those topics, here's your trigger warning now. With that, let's get into the episode. And we're back with another episode of Another Picture Show podcast. I'm Olivia.
I'm Madeline.
And we have
I'm
a
Katie.
guest. Oh.
It's me. I'm Katie.
Whoa there, Eager McBeaver.
The girls are back and so am I.
Yes, we have my sister Katie with us this week. And this is her second time on the podcast, I believe.
As if they don't remember. They
True.
probably listened to that episode multiple times.
They were like, I'm not listening until Katie comes back. Well, now she's back.
Our inbox is flooded with Katie requests, so
Yeah,
we've
exactly.
delivered.
So how's everybody doing?
Yeah.
You know,
It's still a pandemic. We're still here, you know?
just trying to get by, living, I guess.
Nice.
What a downer response. from all of us.
Everyone sounds so thrilled.
So, long story short, I am depressed. You want the full explanation? I will start with March of 2020 and go from there.
Madeline, are you ready to find out what movie we're watching this week?
Considering I'm the only one who does not know, yes.
We're going to be watching Promising Young Woman.
Oh, you know what? I haven't seen it. Surprise.
I didn't think you had.
I've clearly heard of it. I've seen the trailer show up on my freaking YouTube like 17,000 times. Yeah, I'm interested, but I never got around to it. So here we are, I guess.
Well, now I'm forcing you to watch it. So,
Yay.
friendship. Katie, have you seen it?
No. I'm excited.
Mhm.
I've been it's been on my list. I've been wanting to watch it. So I'm excited. So I'm okay. The thing is, isn't that well, Madeline doesn't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it.
I mean, you haven't,
You haven't
seen,
seen
right?
it.
So,
Your guess is
That's
probably
true.
fine.
No, I mean because I know it's Carey Mulligan, right?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Carey Mulligan's lead actress, and then there's that comedian.
Bo Burnham. I'm a big fan of
Bo
his.
Burnham's in it, and based on the trailers, I'm like, I see her being edgy and kind of scary or whatever, and then I see Bo Burnham, and I'm like, what is the vibe of this film?
I don't
Because
know, but I cannot wait to find out.
Yes, you will find out. I think it's one of those movies that people either really vibe with it or they don't. I'm really excited because I think it can foster a lot of really interesting conversations. So with that, do you guys have anything else to say before we go watch it and come back?
Let's do this.
I'm ready.
Cool. All right. So with that, we're going to go watch Promising Young Woman, and we'll be back with our review in 3, 2, 1. And we're back.
I'm glad I saw the recording sign going because I almost burped into the microphone. Really had to cover
Excellent.
my shit real quick. So
Okay, so this week we watched Promising Young Woman, which is a 2020 American Black comedy thriller written and directed by Emerald Fennell in her feature directorial debut. Emerald Fennell was an actress in The Crown, if you guys watched The
I've
Crown.
never seen The Crown, but I knew that.
And she was a showrunner on Killing Eve. Promising Young Woman, the film, is about Cassie, a med school dropout, traumatized by a tragic event in her past, who seeks out vengeance against those who crossed her path. And it stars Carey Mulligan, Bo Burnham, Alison Brie, Clancy Brown, Jennifer Coolidge, Laverne Cox, Chris Lowell, Connie Britton, Adam Brody, Max Greenfeld, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Sam Richardson, Alfred Molina, Molly Shannon, and Steve Monroe. All the people. All the
Great
people.
cast.
It is a fantastic
star-studded cast. When I found out Mr. Krabs was in this movie, I was quite excited. Every time he was like Cassie, I'd be like, my brother was like, stop.
So the film has been nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Director, Best Actress, and Best Picture. At the time of this recording, we haven't, the Oscars hasn't happened yet. I'm not sure when it'll be released in regards to the actual award show. So if it wins, that's awesome. We just don't know it yet.
When are the Oscars?
Sometime in the end of April, I believe.
Oh, cool.
Aren't they normally? It's fine.
Yeah, so there's a lot of award buzz around this film, and once we start talking about it, we'll get into if that's good or bad. The title of this film is in reference to the Brock Turner case, where, you know, Brock was referred to as a promising young man, and that's why he got a very, very lenient sentencing after the sexual assault he did. So with all of that, what were your initial thoughts on the movie? Katie, we'll start with you.
Okay, I did enjoy it. Overall, at the end of it, I was like, yeah, cool. There were definitely, like, I felt like it was, I was in and out of it. Like, there were times where I was, like, really glued to the screen, and I was just, like, really sucked into the narrative. And then there are other times where I was like, I think you lost me. Like, so I was in and out, but overall, I was like, neat.
Okay, that's
Very
fair.
cool. Yeah.
Madeline?
This, first of all, it slapped. It was great. I watched it twice. I watched it 2 days in a row. I really liked it. Katie, I agree with you. The second time I watched it, I was more, I guess because I knew what happened, but I kind of saw like where there were moments where you're just like, why was this, what's going on with this scene? I don't really get it.
Some choices were made.
Yeah. But overall, I thought it was like a really interesting, like, I guess, metaphor for like so many things, and also a really interesting narrative in general is about like sexual assault and about femininity and like feminism in general and like justice in general and like that sort of stuff. So yeah, really good. I liked it.
Okay, interesting. I really, really, really like this movie.
I was like, is Olivia coming in with a hot take? The hot take and the big thoughts?
I hated it. No, I really love this movie. I think it's probably my number one film from 2020. I think I the first time I watched it, I definitely had that reaction that you guys had. I felt like it lost me in some places, but I definitely think this is a film that benefits or rewards multiple viewings, because every time I watch it, I get something else, or I get like, I just understand kind of what's happening a little bit better. And we've all had instances with men that make us go, oh, men are trash. And so specifically in this movie, there were a lot of things that really resonated with me. And I think the nuances or the nuanced kind of avenue that she took with it was really well done, and I really appreciated. So with that, we can probably dive into some more specifics. So I kind of wanted to start with the opening of the movie and work our way through. Madeline, you have some things to say?
The beginning of this movie was one of my favorite fucking parts. Yeah. First of all, I have to say this right out the gate. The soundtrack of this movie.
My god.
I wanted to
so good.
Yeah. Okay, it's Wednesday. I first watched this movie on last Friday, and I have not stopped listening to the soundtrack since.
So
the Raining Men,
the Charlie XCX remix of Boys, unbelievably good. I don't think it was made for this movie, but the fact that they put it in and then like the next shot is like gyrating like men in khakis is amazing. Like it
just
really
sets up like exactly what we're gonna get out of this movie.
Yeah, no, it definitely paints it like perfect. Like you only have to watch the first 30 seconds. You're like, watch the whole thing. But like you're kind of like, the tone has set. It's funny, but it's about like just men who wear khakis. Like it's
and I loved the shot where it starts out with like the really cool filters, like they're all dancing slow, they look really cool, and then they like show the real shot where it's like lame as fuck. There's like a bunch of weird work people grinding on each other. I thought it was so good.
It was amazing.
The It's Raining Men cover.
Oh
Yeah.
So good.
Free in my mind for months
Yeah.
since I've watched this movie for the first time. I cannot stop thinking about.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry. We have to talk about. I'm sorry. I'm gonna
We're just
jump.
going through the
I'm
soundtrack.
I'm gotta talk about the music. Stars Are Blind was a brilliant choice for that.
I had
sequence.
no idea Paris Hilton made music.
I love that.
No
I
idea.
say what you want about Paris Hilton having a music career. That song is amazing.
It was
Brought
good.
it back
It's
into
a
my
good song.
consciousness because I forgot about it. And I
Yeah,
was like,
it's definitely
oh
one
my
of those-
gosh.
You hear it and you're like pulled back in time, like you're back in 2003 and you're like, that's hot. And then you listen to it 500 times. Again, I watched this movie like 5 days ago, and like 4 of the songs from that soundtrack are already on my Spotify, like on repeat playlist.
Oh, I already
Okay,
added them to like the Girls Bridge playlist.
Oh, so did I. I
excellent.
think we double added it.
Okay, one song that like is a bop on its own, but then they changed it, the Toxic version.
Oh,
Yes.
obviously.
I love Toxic, like my favorite Britney Spears song. And so just when I was just like, wow, it's stunning. Oscar right away. But I think I saw an interview where they were talking and she was like, yeah, when I was reading the script, like Emerald had sent me a playlist and Toxic was on there twice. So I knew what the movie was going to be about. And I was like, yes, excellent. Like maybe she had already had the playlist ready to go before the movie was made.
There was one song.
Is it Drinks?
It's called Something Wonderful, and it's from The King and I. It's
Oh.
it's it's when they're burning her body.
Yeah.
And it's, sorry, spoilers, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but it's when, the end when they're burning her body, and it's a song from The King and I about like this guy. It's, the man is not perfect and he does things out of, that aren't always great, but like we love him anyway. It's just
I thought it was an excellent
chef's
choice.
kiss. It's
Absolutely,
like, who thinks
yeah.
of these things? It's like,
And the final scene, Angel of the Morning.
yeah.
Oh,
Because it's like the perfect song, because it's like kind of sad. Like you listen to the lyrics, you're like, this is like mad depressing. But it's just upbeat enough. And like
Mhm.
what the scene, like this, how the scene goes down, and like Schmidt from New Girls
right.
like,
That's
takes
why I
off.
only call him Schmidt. Even in this film, I was like, oh, classic Schmidt.
Yeah, Schmidt just takes off running when the cops show up, like, and like Angel of the Morning's playing, like,
Yes, everything
It
about
wasn't
the everything about the soundtrack is brilliant. I think one thing I really like about the soundtrack is a lot of the songs are very poppy and like fun, and like
Mhm.
outside of the context of the movie, people would think like they're just frivolous, like fun songs, but put into the context of the movie mixed with the aesthetic, it's like I can't do anything but.
Well, that's what I was like. The entire movie, the entire aesthetic of the movie is just about feminism to the extreme, or like femininity to the extreme.
Yeah.
Where I wrote down, how is her hair so full and luscious? What the fuck? Because like she has the most beautiful blonde, like luscious golden hair, and she just wears flowers and pinks, and like even where she works has all those beautiful little dainty cupcakes, and it's like it's all these things that it's just like people shit on all the time because it's feminine, in real life. But then her character is like so scary. And I just really loved that, I don't know, they were just unapologetically like, yeah, she's a woman and she'll kill you. And it's great.
Like you can be strong and weak and like complicated and be extremely feminine at the same time. Like they didn't, I liked how like her character is very broken throughout the entire movie, but instead of, being the stereotypical like diving into herself and trying to close herself off from the world and like not take care of herself, kind of try to get attention away from her, she just goes with it and she's like, no, I like to look cute and I am who I am, and I also do all this crazy shit on the side. But yeah,
this might sound like kind of a hot take, but this is what I noticed the first time watching it, was about her like outfits and stuff, like, and anybody can dress how they want, but the way she dressed felt very like, she's 30, she turns 30 in the movie, felt very young. Like it felt very like, skinny jeans and like, the body, like whatever, what the hell are those, like
early 20s, like college.
Early 20s, yeah, like stuff that I would still be like, am I past this point, And like she wears like again,
Ribbons in
dress
her
how you
hair.
want. She wears ribbons. She wears
Lots
her
of
hair in like a little
braids.
braid and everything.
Yeah.
Like she dresses and like presents herself young in her like off hours, like in the hours where she's not pretending to be drunk and like, you know, getting picked up, so to
Mhm.
speak, by men. And I think that's kind of her like subconsciously still stuck in the past. Like she might have dressed that way. We
Mhm.
don't know. She might have dressed that way when she was in med school because like they would have been like 23, 24 at the
Yeah.
time based on like, you know, what was said in the movie. So like she's still kind of stuck in that way of dress. So she still takes care of herself, but she hasn't like advanced as far as like how she looks at herself
Her
since-
interests and
yeah,
like,
her interests
style.
or anything like that since that time. Like it's almost like that that tragedy struck and like everything around that just like froze.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it went.
It's kind of like her innocence was stolen from her, like when this event happened to her and Nina.
Mhm.
And the only way to like hold on to that part of her or stay connected to that time in her life when she was happy with Nina is like to not age.
To not move on.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's what people were telling her to do, is just move on because everyone else has, and she refused.
And she forgot her own birthday. Like she wasn't even thinking
Yeah.
about time or like, you know, aging or whatever. Her parents were like, how can you forget your own birthday? You're 30 now, you know?
Yeah.
Like a lot of that was, I think, kind of hinting at the fact that like she couldn't move on. Like she really was
Mhm.
like, and
Yeah.
you know, rightly so. Like she really was like stuck on like this really horrible thing that happened to her friend and her.
Yeah. So kind of talking about like how she's dealing with it currently. Let's go back to the opening scene where we like are introduced to like her plan, how she's dealing with it. So it opens with the boys gyrating in the club
Love it.
in
Literally so
khakis,
good.
and we're automatically sucked into this tone of like, okay, we've seen these boys, we know what this is.
I've seen those khakis before.
Yeah. And then we are introduced to a group of men talking or complaining about a woman at their work who had complained about not wanting to go to a strip club or something for business purposes. And they are super offended by that. And one of the men is Adam Brody. Madeline, if you recognize him from Jennifer's Body.
I know. I saw him and I was like, damn, like he looks so different. Like it took me a minute to like remember who he was.
Yeah. And so his friends are, look over and we see Cassie for the first time and she's like super inebriated, drunk, kind of rolling around, very obviously out of it. The guys start talking about, wow, look at that, they deserve it or they're asking for it if they, get that drunk and dress like that. And then Adam Brody's character is kind of like made out to be, the good guy in the group. He's kind of like, guys, that's ridiculous. And he goes over and like offers his assistance. So at this point in the movie, what are we thinking? How are we feeling about this setup?
I'm already pissed.
I'm infuriated at the coworkers. And then, I mean, knowing like more or less, like, when you see the trailer, you know what it's about. So
Yeah.
like seeing the scene and like seeing the nice guy like roll up to like assist, you're just like, when does this turn? Because like it's coming. Like they're not trying to like shy away from it. I thought it was like genius. Like
Yeah.
all the choices of like the prominent men in this movie were like, like again, chef's kiss. Like it says
just
a
the
lot.
casting of like Hollywood nice guys or like people
Yes.
that we have come to know as nice men.
Mhm.
Every single one of them. It's not the typical
Bo
villain.
Burnham, we'll get to him, but
we'll definitely get to each of them. But yeah, starting with Adam Brody, I personally only know him from Jennifer's Body, so like seeing him in this, I was like already suspicious. But
between the trees, oh no, through the trees.
I was already suspicious, but like he's otherwise known as playing really, really nice men, and he was in the OC as like a nice teenager, I guess. But I think he did a really, really good job being that like initial nice guy role, coming up to her, offering her help. You think like, oh, he's being genuine, but then as the night goes on and he does all the like really small things that eventually lead up to an assault happening.
Yeah, it
Right.
was very. I thought they did it really well, where they're like, look how subtle it is, but also, don't you want to just like grab him and be like, what the fuck is your problem?
What slayed me was like the cab driver. Like all the
Mhm.
choices in this movie are so real and so relatable because the cab driver obviously clocked that she was blasted because he was like, don't puke on my car, lady. Like I just got
Yeah.
it cleaned. And she's like, no, I'm good, I'm good. And then it's very obvious they're strangers, like uncomfortably so. And when he was like, hey, like my apartment's not too far from here, you want to go? And she's like not giving like
She didn't answer.
she didn't answer. And then he's like, oh, like here's my address. And the Uber driver like didn't give a fuck. Like he
Like,
was
whatever.
like the ride share driver. I
Just
should
get her out of my car.
blasting Uber, but the ride share driver was like, whatever, just put in the app. And it's like, oh, it's like it's so true. Like something like that would happen, and you would hope that because this man driving clearly recognized she was out of her mind drunk, he would step in and be like, no, we're going to the destination in the app. Like,
Yeah.
And then we get to his apartment and he makes her a kumquat liqueur.
Oh my god.
when I heard that, I went,
I cackled. I was like, of course.
like that's all he has left. He's like, what is the strongest percentage liquor I have? And like kumquat liqueur is probably
It just felt
illegal.
so freshman year of college.
Yeah.
Where it's like we used to drink Burnett's in college, and it's like, of course, like yeah. The kumquat Burnett's, you know.
So nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he tries to get her more drunk and then takes her into the bedroom and is, making out with her, saying she's beautiful, as if like, well, okay, back up. When they're on the couch and he's like, you're so beautiful, and then tries to make out with her, as if like just saying you're beautiful is like gates open, everything else is, a go. Even though she
Compliment
didn't
me once
respond
and
to
I'm
that at all.
yours.
Yeah. All you have to say is you're beautiful and it's game on.
And it was literally like he was kissing a piece of wood. Like she did not give back at all.
And he was like, my favorite part was when he was like, wow.
Yeah.
I just like died. And then when he brings her into the room and like she's on the bed and she's pretending to be like, like a rag doll, and he jumps up and he's puts his little feet up and he was like, don't fall asleep. I was like,
God.
don't fall asleep. Like, she's drunk. She's about to pass out.
Yeah.
What's not clicking there, bro? Like, she's
Like, why do you think this is okay? Just because she's like
why is this a
barely
smart
awake?
idea?
Because she's not fully unconscious, that you're like, yeah, this is fine.
It's just the thought process. It's like you knew she like needed help because she was drunk. You knew she had to like get home somehow, so you did that. At what point did you think like she is not in a good decision-making mode? I'm gonna take her home because that's a smart idea. You know these things, yet you refuse to acknowledge that they're bad.
Well, the thing is like they don't, in their head, they don't see that it's bad because they don't think of themselves as the predator. That's like what this whole movie is about, is like flipping the mirror on those people, the guys that watch this movie thinking it's going to be like this super mega revenge thrasher, rape revenge thing. And then it's like, but they see themselves in the movie and it's,
that's the thing.
uncomfortable.
I talked to two men in my life. Both had seen the film, and they they were like, I didn't really align myself with the men in the film. I was like, oh, that's convenient.
Interesting point.
And I think it's because Emerald met a lot of the men in the film kind of have that like fratty vibe to them. And I think she did that because that is the epitome of toxic masculinity and like patriarchy and stuff in our country. And so I found that really interesting when I watched it, and these men were like, yeah, I enjoyed the film and I understand what they're saying and it's terrible, but I don't really see myself in the film. And so it's very much just okay, she chose the toxic masculinity, but then she also chose Bo Burnham, and he's supposed to be
And McLovin is
McLovin,
literally
yeah.
the antithesis of a fucking frat guy. So like,
Yeah.
not to say these guys like are lying, but like any dude who saw
Yeah.
this and was like, that's not me. I'm like, you are either a Adam Brody, a Chris Lowell, a fucking Bo Burnham, or a McLovin. Like,
And like you're in the movie somewhere. You just like have to like look in the mirror. You just be like, take ownership of your part in our fucked up society, because like you're in there.
Like the point of men not seeing themselves in the movie and like it being a part of the like fratty culture on college campuses and stuff. When I was in college, I had to give a speech in a class, and my speech was about a hypothetical program that we could implement in the school to reduce rape and sexual assault on college campuses. And I opened my speech just straight up saying, like I was raped, to like get people's attention and to like let them know I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I gave my speech and yada yada, it was cool, whatever. One of the guys in my class raised his hand and was like, okay, but like why do we care about this? If people are gonna rape, then like that's what they're gonna do. Basically saying like
Oh my gosh.
basically saying it's only a certain like type of person that commits these crimes. The thing is the person who raped me was a friend of mine. It's not, the people who commit these things are not people hiding in bushes at night. Like
No.
it could be, one of your friends that just like makes a stupid decision and puts themselves in a like circumstance where they're not respecting the other person, or they're not thinking about how your actions are affecting the other person. And that's like where this movie really sheds a light on those people who are like, it's not me. I'm not like a bad man hiding in the bushes waiting to drag a woman, behind a dumpster. Like it's your friend. Anybody can be culpable in these situations. Like even women, like there are women in this movie that are culpable in the rape culture that happens and that exists. You're not exempt from it just because you're a woman or because you think that you're a nice guy. You have to take a look at yourself and how you might be contributing to the rape culture that exists.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about the opening a little bit, the opening scene with Adam Brody. Did you guys think that she had killed him like the first time you watched it? Like, what did you think?
I did not think he killed him. I definitely thought maybe she like beat his ass, or
Yeah.
like when the scene with McLovin happened, like where it like kind of exposed like what she was up to, that made a lot of sense. Where it was like, I just wanted to like scare the shit out of you and like make you kind of see like how stupid you are. I did not think she was a serial killer. When I was telling my brother about the movie though, he did go, oh, is this the movie where the chick goes John Wick on people? And I was like,
Nice.
Yeah.
I was both relieved and disappointed that she was not a serial killer. I feel like if she had been a serial killer, it would have made it like cheesy, like John Wick or whatever, like it,
Right.
I feel like it would have undermined the point of the movie. But then I was also disappointed because I felt like her character has like, it fulfilled the rage that I have and that like all of my friends have and that just women in our country have. Like she has all the rage and she can do something about it. And so I was like, girl, but then like, but then at the same time, like it would have ruined it. So I don't know. I was both happy and not.
So as you said, I'm glad she wasn't a serial killer. One, because like when she goes through the notebook, she's like killed, like, well, like she's like hit like,
What? There's so many.
Like definitely several hundred dudes.
Damn.
I'm like, you've been at this for a few years at least. Also, like, if she had killed that many people, I would have been like, somebody must stop her. Like, I don't like this is too far. But
yeah, she can't keep going to these bars if she's killing people.
What made me think, okay, so like I went through a very not minor thought process about this, where it's like, she's asserting herself, like at like its very core, she's like, she is not taking like this shit anymore, because like it clearly damaged her. It definitely damaged Nina, her friend. And she's going to like, even if these dudes didn't directly do it, they are very much culprits in like the grand scheme of things, like in like the grander, you know, misogynistic experience. But like what made me kind of sad watching it, when she would do this confrontation, like she goes through a whole performance, like she really puts in a lot of effort. And again, the movie's like, it's talking more greater about like, again, the hoops and the efforts that, you know, women have to go through to be believed and to be, you know, acknowledged and listened to. But like after she confronted character Jerry, and then like the friend, so later on, like when she was leaving the bar with the one of his coworkers, Jerry's coworkers, Paul, he was like, "Oh, you're that psycho bitch Jerry was talking about." And it's like I went through something like, I did not like get drunk and or pretend to get drunk and like confront a man, but like I was like, I stood up for myself recently to a man because like he was just being a flat out fucking dick.
Mm.
And I was like, how you're behaving is not okay. Like I just like, it was over text, like this was not in person. I was like, this dude is probably like 99% chance this dude is reacting the same way as Jerry did talking to his buddies, being like, this fucking crazy bitch, like she said this shit to me.
Did you think that her revenge plan, you know, getting drunk, you know, tricking men into taking her home, thinking that she's drunk, to like confront them, not necessarily being violent, because we find out that she's not being violent, she's just confronting them and like calling them out on their shit. Was it effective, do you think?
I don't think it was. Like that's why I was thinking about it. I was like, that's why it felt like, in a way, like it shouldn't, but it did. It felt sad to me, where it's like, you know, she is putting in all this effort to like, in a kind of like abstract way, educate these people. And just knowing my experience from like interacting with men and like doing a similar like assertion and trying to make myself heard and make myself understood, like the reaction is just to like, to rationalize, is to just justify like their actions. Like McLovin was like, I'm a nice guy. I'm like, boy, you were shoving crack down her throat. Are you fucking kidding me? Or cocaine. It wasn't crack.
He's working on a novel, but he just, you know, doesn't have time right now.
Yeah. That novel like idea was hilarious.
So like specific and accurate. It's like,
it was really good.
But
over the course of one night in New York,
what it's like to be a man.
What it's like, yeah, exactly. What it's like
what
to
it
be
means
a
to be a
man
man
these days.
Give me a
my
freaking
God.
break. Read The Great Gatsby. It's the same book.
I think,
Which ironically, Carey Mulligan was also in the movie.
True. I think I agree with you. Like, I don't think it was. They don't tell you what the different markings in her notebook mean, like the different color markings. I know that at one point you see that she has like a bruise on her hand to kind of to show that like not every night that she has with one of these guys goes without violence.
Yeah.
You know, like
I was thinking about that.
She's not
it's
going
extremely
into
dangerous for her.
Yeah, like
be doing
she's
this.
not going into it unscathed every single time. Like sometimes men react violently, sometimes they react like Adam Brody, just looking like, oh shit, like, you know, sometimes they act like McLovin, being like, you're psycho, I did nothing wrong, once it's flipped around on them. So I think that it depends. I think in some cases it probably was effective and it made whoever it was kind of sit back. But this movie, like I said, is like, how do you react when you're confronted with like your own sin? You know, this movie was marketed as a rape revenge thriller, which is like a really interesting genre of film in general to be included in, because, you know, when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I thought it was going to be like a John Wick type thing where she was like,
She whacked some dudes.
people, and like,
which I probably would have really enjoyed as well.
yeah, no, I was going to say, because that's a very specific type of cathartic experience that I had a really hard time relating to. I never felt like that was, it's representative of like a certain part of my experience as like a survivor, right? Like it acknowledges the need for accountability, and it's a fantasy ultimately, you know. So like we have movies about rape revenge from like the beginning of film, and some of the most popular ones kind of arose in the 70s, and it's always very, very violent. Like you see the graphic nature of the assault itself, you don't see that in this film at all. You don't see any violence happen to Cassie outside of the ending or to Nina.
You don't see Nina at all. You just see photos of her as a
exactly.
child.
The victim herself is not present in the movie, but in like the typical rape revenge, you see this like awful assault happen to the woman. It's supposed to act as like the phoenix moment for the female heroine. Like she has to go through this in order to become like the strong badass that she'll become later, to enact her violence on men. But
I cannot believe I'm making this comparison, but this is like literally Rosalie from Twilight.
yeah, no, I have no, I have it written down. I have like I Spit on Your Grave, Kill Bill, Red Sparrow, Peppermint, and Rosalie.
Yeah.
But like, you know, Rosalie, obviously she's a vampire and it's a fantasy world, but like not attainable for women in real life. Like you're not going to get that in pretty much 99% of cases. You're not going to go violently attack your attackers and have no repercussions. You know, this is a very realistic kind of approach to the revenge thriller. She knows her limitations, and therefore she isn't trying to work outside of them. She's just trying to go from individual to individual to try to make change.
I just don't think, like, as you said, it is like a fantasy. Like it's unattainable, like, for women to like get, for the most part, to get this type of revenge, because, you know, even in her notebook when she like attacks, like, or she not attacks, she like has hit dozens of dudes. In reality, you wouldn't make it past like dude 3, you know, if you were actually to try and attempt this sort of, I guess, scheme, because men are violent. You know, not all men are violent, but men are violent. And, you know, the wrong one decides to pick you up from the bar and you go home and try and pull your spiel. And as you said, like, it turns violent, and it turns deadly violent. Like, of course, this movie isn't trying to be like, this is a great example of how you can stand up for yourself. Of course, it's not saying that.
Don't go to therapy, do this.
Right. Like, I think it also is important to note that, like, everybody in this movie, you know, who knows Cassie well, recognizes that she's not doing great. Like, she's not herself, and she hasn't been herself for like since her friend probably died, if not prior to when she was attacked and dropped out of med school.
And I think that's that says a lot about our society. It was like that anger and grief and like is not an attractive quality in women. It's not an allowed quality in women. Like, women are supposed to be happy and like just like, yay, I'm having a good time, I'm so nice, like I don't have any problems to complain about. And she is just very much unwilling to deny her feelings or to like pretend like everything's okay when ultimately like her best friend died, right?
Yeah, even Nina's mom was like, you need to let this go. And like, in some ways, I'm sure she was trying to help Cassie, being like, you know, this, like, it is unhealthy, but at the same time, it's like you know, nobody was really, at least from what we saw, nobody's really trying to like help Cassie process like what she was going through. Like, people were just like, this is a tragic event, sucks that we couldn't get the guy. Or even if they thought about that, they just were like, whatever, it's sad, but move on.
In doing this, like in researching this film, I heard Emerald Fennell talk about how like Cassie going out at night is like an addiction for her. Like she's addicted to trying to bring accountability, because accountability wasn't given to Nina. And so she's just trying to keep men accountable as much as she can, even at the expense of her own well-being and you know, her own health and life, you know, ultimately. So we start with number 1, Madison McPhee. Cassie invites her to a lunch, a very fancy lunch, pours Madison some champagne, wine, whatever, and pours herself some ginger ale, you know, classic, get the other person drunk while you look like you're drinking, but you're not. Gets Madison extremely drunk and then decides to bring up, you know, what happened back in med school.
I am familiar with like Madison's character of like who she represents, you know? And like oh my gosh, when she just had twins or whatever, and she like sits down and she's like, do you have children? And Cassie's like, no, and she's like, you'll get there. I was like, oh my god, like,
Yeah, that was a trigger.
I'm like, Madison, I already hate you. So like I do appreciate that like Madison felt like a human being, kind of, where she was like, I have my own struggles and like being a woman is hard and I recognize that. But then when like it comes to like that she did not like help Nina and she was like just as much to blame in the situation. I don't know, like that happens. Like there are plenty of women in the world who just go along with it to protect themselves. And so I appreciated like her that role in this film. But yeah, I don't like her.
Yeah, that conversation kind of like hit too close to home. Like 2 years ago, like, not to get deep, but like, you know, unfortunately, like a lot of women go through a very similar event. Like I was at like a work event. A lot of the coworkers had left. Me and this other gal had stayed with a male coworker, and one thing led to another, and he like groped me. Like luckily for me, it did not go beyond that. But the next day when I was like telling her about it, like she like was very dismissive, and I was like, can you just like you don't remember this, like you don't remember seeing it, because it was like very obvious. And she was like, no, I don't. Like she kept being in denial about it. And I was like, okay, well, if you don't remember, just like forget I told you anything, because like she was also the kind of person that was like a big gossip. So I didn't want like it going around the office at that time, because it was like very embarrassing. Like for me, like I felt very embarrassed. Obviously I shouldn't have, but still.
Yeah.
So like when she was like talking about like how she did, like she obviously knew but didn't know, that's like I felt the same way with like I really felt that conversation out. And like also the scenes in like the bar with the coworkers and everything, I was like, oh, this is like very similar to things that I have experienced. And it was like infuriating. I was like, I would not do what Cassie did to get back at this girl. But
like even like Madison, their initial conversation is how she like partied and like did all the sex things, and then she like got married and is now a good girl or whatever. And she's like, oh, too bad your husband doesn't know. And she's like, well, he doesn't need to know, like won't kill him, whatever. So it insinuates
this girl, like
it insinuates that she like fucked and like had a good time in her youth or whatever. But then as soon as it's Nina and like she was raped, she's like, well, if people are know that you sleep around and you like have a background as a slut, then like it's kind of expected that this is going to happen to you. And it's like, you literally have the same background as Nina. What are you talking about?
After the event happened to me in college, I had a few close girlfriends who were, immediately around me that I tried to talk to about it. And one of them straight up said, well, I knew something like that would happen to you because you like to drink sometimes, and that I deserved it. And so it's like, it's very, very accurate that there's, women are so beaten down by the patriarchy that they feel like they need to deflect it onto other women and make it their fault so that they can still be accepted by the nice guys, so that they can still be accepted by the men who are committing these crimes, even though it's, disgusting and not our fault that these things happen to us when it's the men perpetuating it. There are definitely women like Madison, like these, other girls that we've been talking about out there.
It's just like a defense mechanism, because like women have been so gaslit to believe that if something happens to you, it's your fault. And thus you need to gaslight other people to like make sure your reality is reality. And like I'm the kind of person who's like, oh, if I have enough information, then I'll be okay. Like if I know how to get out of a situation or whatever, then like nothing bad could happen to me. And like that's not true. But it's that kind of thing where it's like, oh, well, that you shouldn't get like really drunk because something could happen to you. Oh, you shouldn't like hang out with men alone because they can't control themselves. Like Madison knows that, and thus she can't be blamed, or like it's not her fault, it's the victim's fault if something does happen, because like she should already know. And
I think part of it too, like I 100% agree. I think part of it is also a deflection in you don't want to believe that it could happen to you.
yeah.
So, and so you try to push that away, and by, putting distance between you and something like that, it's easier to be like, well, I enjoy drinking, but I do it the right way, like I enjoy drinking, and like my friends would never do that. But you don't know. Like that's the thing. It's like you don't know until it does. But then Cassie kind of flips the switch. This is when we knew Cassie was pretty dark, but we didn't quite know how dark. This is kind of when she goes John Wick, but not full violent. She just
Like not murder, but like
No.
definitely down that dark alley.
just like really
Mhm.
twisted and not good. Not good, Cassie. She leaves Madison there, super drunk, and pays a man to take her up to her hotel room, so that when Madison wakes up, she thinks that something might have happened with this strange man that she doesn't know.
Mhm.
The levels of fucked up that is, I was almost lost at that point in the movie. I was like, I cannot root for Cassie anymore at all. Like,
Yeah.
but then, later it's revealed that nothing actually happened. She was just trying to twist, the situation around on
Still
her.
not great. Like
No, it's still not
Not a
good.
good
the
look.
mental and emotional trauma that
Yeah.
Madison then feels, that's like fucking awful.
No, there's no getting out of it. Cassie did horrible things, but I was a little relieved that she didn't actually set her up
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And like in my like the way that like that exchange happened, I felt like it was one of those like just take her upstairs and just sit there. But like she was even taking a risk doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she
Because
didn't
you don't know
I
if
mean
the guy would actually do it.
you don't exactly you don't know like what her relationship with this dude is, and like whether or not he's actually just going to take the $500 and just throw this lady on a bed and sit in the corner until she wakes up.
Yeah.
So she was taking a great risk hiring
Yeah.
this guy to do that. So
'Cause
that's
we know
also
Cassie doesn't have great trust in men, so it was like really risky.
like, yeah.
That she
Like
would.
who is this man?
Yeah.
Who are you? It doesn't matter. It really
That's a
doesn't matter.
separate movie.
Separate movie about how Cassie met this dude and like the events that happened after the luncheon. But yeah, I was very surprised. Like I knew she wasn't like, hey, go up there and like do your thing. It was more like, make it look sus and see what happens.
And then we go from there to Dean Walker. But before we get to Dean Walker, it looks like she kidnaps a child. And
She does. She fully
she does-
kidnaps a
She
child.
does straight up kidnap a child and drops her off at a diner somewhere. But when she goes to Dean Walker, confronts her, asks her if she remembers Nina. She doesn't remember Nina, but she does remember Al Monroe and what a great guy he was. But then confronted with Nina's assault, Dean Walker says, this stuff happens all the time. I can't believe every single case that comes in. We don't want to ruin an innocent boy's life over these kinds of
Oh
accusations.
my god.
And then, I think this is when we find out that, Nina died. I think this is when she actually says it.
This scene was like kind of cathartic. I mean,
Yeah.
don't kidnap. Actually, I want to go to the kidnap thing for a hot second. Like
Yeah, we
literally a hot second.
Let's talk about it.
Because it is they literally just like poked it for like they like went boop and then they moved on. This issue where like women can like this is a separate issue, but women can be predators.
Yeah.
Like, women-
Absolutely.
like she was preying on like and targeting this girl. She like researched her background. She figured out her obsession with like wet dreams, which is hilarious.
I love
That
it.
name was so great. But like she like targeted this girl like, I know your obsessions. I know how to get you in my car. I know how to get you to give up my phone. I know how to get you to do anything I want, even if it's not like a creepy like sexual thing. Like it's still a violent like
Yeah.
act
Mm.
to like kidnap it, like to stalk online and like manipulate a young girl into getting into your car. So like in a way, like not to make this like some sort of like grand stretch, but like just as like these dudes are predators, like Cassie is a different kind of predator. Like she's not a
Absolutely.
sexual predator, but she's like some like, you know, sociopathic revenge, you know, driven woman who like will do anything to get her point across, and that includes like preying on this young girl in order to suit her own needs. And that's just what these other predators do. They like prey on women to suit their own needs. The needs are just like vastly different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they just like poked that bear. Bear didn't wake up completely, but it like went like roar and then like went back to sleep. But I even was like, because like she looks so cute. She's in this like little
She's
car.
like chewing on candy the whole time.
Very unassuming, like very like helpless, and you know, like yeah, you think about all the times you're like, oh, I'll help this like stranger because she's a woman, and like, you know, women help women, women support women. But it's like the moment it's like, get in my car, like it is like crazy to think like, wow, I really need to take a beat and think about whether or not this like woman is trying to harm me. This like, because as we've seen, not every woman is out to like support, you know, their own gender.
Yeah. Not all men, not all women.
Not all women, no. So, but
Not
then
all
back to
people.
Dean Walker,
Mhm.
yeah, like she knew, like this whole time she knew what boys, men are capable of. It wasn't until it was a personal issue that she was like, okay, like this is a fucking problem. Like that it wasn't until her daughter was mentioned. Her daughter was theoretically dropped off with some boys and some alcohol that it became like a major threat.
And I feel like that's an issue for a lot of people.
Yep.
I mean, when the like sexual assault allegations were happening with the Boy Scouts, and like I heard someone being like, where are all these like accusers coming from? Like, who's paying them or whatever? And I'm like, these are actual children, but because they're not your children, you have no sympathy for them, or you like don't believe them. You think it's outrageous, but like they're actual children. Like they have no reason to lie about this. And so I felt like with each person she goes and talks to, like they hit on a different aspect of rape and the impacts and stuff like that. And so I appreciated this conversation with Walker as she represented like institutions,
Yes.
like schools and their responses.
Mhm.
And the fact that yeah, they're just like, this happens twice a week and we couldn't possibly do anything to like that could harm the potential reputation of our future doctors or whatever like these men are going to be or whatever. But it's like another human being's life is like being traumatized right now. So how can you prioritize? It's just really annoying and just makes me mad.
And it was interesting, it was another woman. Like she was like like as you said, I agree she was representative of institutions, but she was also like representative of like the laziness of like the justice system, where it's like, oh, that's too hard to prove, innocent until proven guilty. And it's like, how about just listen to the victim and actually, you know, do an investigation? Because you can bet your sweet ass that she heard Nina's story, or who and any other woman or man's story who came in, you know, reporting a sexual assault and was like, we'll look into it. And then like probably just asked the perpetrator,
Yeah.
hey, did you do this? And they were like, oh no, we definitely had consensual sex. And then the dean was like, that sounds good enough for me, and then just let it go.
Well, like her, you know, you obviously see that she has no trust in college boys, because as soon as she hears that her daughter's in a room alone with a bunch of college boys, she gets terrified.
Yeah.
And I think this scene in particular kind of really hammers home the like title of the movie. Like it's inspiration with the like Brock Turner case, you know, the promising young man. Like, well, we can't go around ruining young men's lives over he said, she said situation like this. And like in the Brock Turner case, that's exactly what it was. They didn't want to ruin his career, his life, because he was young and had stuff going on in his life, but there was no regard for, you know, Chanel Miller and what she had going on in her life. I know Katie and I read her book, Know My Name. that what it's called?
I think it should be required reading
Yeah, I do too.
in high schools. Like well, Chanel Miller is just a fantastic artist in person. Like follow her on Instagram, really cool. And like I mean, just her letter alone, she wrote a letter, came out, inspired tons of people. But then she also wrote this book that just like tells her story across the entire, like her rape, the trial, and like after, and her relationships with her family and friends and all these different people in her life and how they responded to it. So I think, I don't know, it's just like her work is so honest and so it's just so good. And yeah, I definitely think it should be required reading for everyone. But that's like, I thought this movie, like they keep saying like no one remembers Nina's name. They barely say Nina's name. You don't see her. And at the very end of the movie, when she's like, her name was written, or your name was written all over her so that she no longer existed. Now you get to have her name written on you. And I feel like that's still true with Chanel Miller.
Yeah.
That people don't know, like her book is Know My Name, and people still only know her as like the Brock Turner victim.
The Jane Doe of the Brock Turner
Yeah,
case.
and so I definitely, like, the entire film was thinking of her, and just that, like, the erasure of the victim, because the man is like the priority the entire time. So
I think it was a really, I mean, I've already said this. I think it's just like a really good choice that she made to not include Nina. We don't see anything. We don't, like, because we aren't privy to the situation. So we are learning all this information through someone adjacent to the victim. That's true to life. Like, we're not going to be privy to the incident itself. Therefore, it gives people more room to be empathetic to the men in this movie. And we're seeing that with like certain men in our lives being empathetic with the men in this movie and like understanding like, oh, well, you know, it's understandable they would react that way. She's being crazy. You know, a lot of the critiques that I've seen about this movie is saying that, one, it was boring because she wasn't being violent.
Disagree. You want to see violent?
But they say it's boring because she wasn't actually murdering them, and that they thought they came into it thinking that's what it was, and they just wanted to come in and see this badass woman, you know, get abused and then abuse men.
Then go watch Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
a great film.
And I feel like it would have just been a repeat of Kill Bill if she started killing hoes. And then also that would have like in turn victimized the men because like they would have been murder victims. And like, yeah, you remember the murderer, but like people are definitely much more like these days, like assertive about like remember the murder victims' names, like, you know, whenever there's a tragedy, which is, it feels like every day, like people, at least, you know, that I follow on the internet are like, you know their names as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know the victims, and then, you know, the person murdering them, like their motive is like completely, you know, inane compared to like the violent acts that they did. Like who the fuck cares why you're angry or why you're frustrated? Like you killed people, like you took lives. In a way, like Al Monroe murdered Nina, like he stole her life, but nobody thinks of it that way because they were two separate events, like his, you know, attack, like him attacking her, and then her death, which is, you know, heavily implied was a suicide due to what he did to her and like how it altered her forever.
I mean, he literally did kill Cassie, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So do we have anything else to say about the Dean Walker scene?
No. Love the choice of casting though.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh no, I do have something to say. Okay, in that scene, she's in her office yelling. The women in the living room. The women in the waiting room. It's our house.
In the den.
The women in the waiting room don't come in. And I felt like that was really interesting because like we're just taught to not get involved. Like you hear an argument and you're like,
man in there.
She hears women, like she hears a woman's voice pleading.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they're used to hearing people get animated going in there. About
like
this.
the secretary, I don't know, secretary lady, like literally like looked up, like she was like kind of like looked up and smirked a little bit and then went back to what she was doing. And
I
I'm
was like, don't worry about
oh
that.
my God.
I interpreted it as like they knew another woman was in there, so it couldn't possibly be like a dangerous situation. It was just
Yeah.
like emotional, like as you guys were kind of saying. Because like if I was the secretary and I knew that a man was in there and I heard some woman shouting, I would probably be more concerned. Like, truth be told, like if a woman was in there and they were shouting, I'd be like, they're just having an argument. Like I would be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't interrupt because that sounds personal. Like
Mhm.
truly, like I'm being completely honest. Like, but if I knew a man was in there, I would be much more concerned.
You know, we're constantly told to not, just to like mind your own business, and you know, if you intervene it could be dangerous, which is very true. But
Yeah.
you know, also there are certain situations where you gotta at least check, just be like, hey, is everything okay? Just insert yourself some way to make sure that people are being safe. Okay, so the Alfred Molina scene, Cassie's character is named after the woman, the like Trojan priestess from Greek mythology, Cassandra. She was a, Trojan priestess who was cursed to only speak true prophecies but never be believed. And I think that's obvious throughout the entire movie, but also obvious in the Alfred Molina scene.
I don't know if I'm just like reading into this, but he was like, I was at work and I had an epiphany, but the doctors called it a psychotic break. Like he literally says, like, in my opinion, I had an epiphany, like I had a revelation, like a revelation. Okay. Had a revelation. I woke up and I like recognized what I was doing wrong, and I freaked out, like because of how wrong it is. Like I destroyed people's lives, and like he had that emotional reaction that he should have, and the doctors, the society told him that it was a psychotic break. And I felt like that was like women telling their opinions, being like, this is wrong, and people telling they're hysterical.
Yeah.
Or like they're just not believing, just being like, it's that time of the month for you, like go rest, like, and when you're ready to come back, then you can come back. But
like the only man in this film who acknowledged that like what was being done and like society as a general statement was like wrong was being, essentially like the moment he turned on like the norm, he was treated the same way or a similar way as like, the victims were. Like he was like,
he was hidden away.
Actually, this is kind of fucked up. And then like, his doctors, his colleagues who all benefit from this, assuming, his doctors are male, whatever, like it doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't even matter. His doctors, his coworkers, like all the people who still benefit from this way of life and this system are like, you kind of lost it, buddy. Like that doesn't make any, like, why would you say that? And exactly wrote it off.
You just need a break.
You need a break, go on sabbatical.
Yeah.
We'll take care of everything. And they forced him out. Like they forced him out. He couldn't, make change from where he was because they literally were like, take a beat, go sleep on your couch. We'll talk to you in a few months.
Yeah.
Him coming to Jesus, the like coming to Jesus moment, and then realizing all the shit that he was involved in and trying, wanting to make it right, but being told by his colleagues and medical professionals that he's just insane for trying to remedy the truth. This movie is like not about seeking physical revenge, but it's about like forgiveness and how there's room for forgiveness in situations like this, but only if you're willing to confront it and acknowledge that you did something wrong. And most of the men in this film don't, except for Alfred Molina's character, who, Cassie ultimately forgave and trusted to help her with her, last big hurrah at the end. Yeah.
I feel like I related a lot to Cassie's character and just like how angry she is. Like she herself was not raped, but essentially her best friend, her sister, was. And like I've had multiple people in my life who have been sexually assaulted, but I myself have been very fortunate to not have gone through that experience. And so like to have that connection to someone who's gone through such a traumatic experience and like not get closure from it, to not be okay from it. Like I completely understood Cassie's rage and like her unwillingness to let it go. And so I that's what I feel like I most appreciate in this film, is just like someone, even if she is like fictitious, she got to like just let it out in the way that I could not during those times. And when the lawyer, like, he did his speech and I was like, okay, this is not where I was thinking it was going to go, but like good, you know? And then she's like, okay, like I forgive you. And I felt like in myself, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to forgive him. Like, I don't know if him just being like, oh, I had a psychotic break and I realized what I did wrong and I'm so sorry about it. Like, I'm like, I like that's good. But I feel like I have my own, like, I don't know. I just like, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to forgive this character.
The question is like, is it for Cassie to forgive?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, you know, her assault. Like, obviously she is affected by it, but that's a question that is fair to bring up. You know, like, is it for Cassie? Is it Cassie's place to forgive him when Nina isn't around anymore? Obviously she's trying to act on her behalf because Cassie's no longer around. Nina's no longer around, but and after she forgives him, this is when we see her like parked in the middle of the road and we have that guy like come up next to her and is like yelling at her, and then she has her like break and like smashes his windows, but is obviously not okay. But
I didn't know like how I felt about that scene. Like, I didn't know if it was really useful for like the plot. Like I related to the scene and I appreciated the music, like it swells up and she's like, but it kind of felt like a, what is that word? Like a disassociative episode where she's like in her head, some dude starts yelling at her, she like not even like, it's like sleepwalking. She like gets out of her car, smashes his window, he drives away, and then she stands there, and then you kind of see her like wake up and then get back in her car. So I didn't know what to feel.
I think for me that kind of showed that she doesn't enjoy these things that she's doing. Like, it's not, she doesn't get pleasure out of doing these things. She's still very broken and hurt, and like she's not doing this out of pleasure. And so when she acts out against these people to get revenge, and in this case the asshole that's like being a complete dick to her on the road, but when she reacts that way and then he drives off and she's like defeated, and this is right after the lawyer apologizes, which is not what she was expecting going into that. So I think that's like the breaking point for her before she really decides to like give it up and like fully focus on Ryan. But then that's when we get the video.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know if that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I get it. Let's talk about Ryan.
Okay, let's talk about Ryan.
Oh, my boy. I love you.
Like Ryan is almost like my worst fear in a way. And probably in a way was like Cassie's like worst nightmare when she realized this guy that she had like, you know, I'm sure it was hard to trust Ryan, but like she put her like faith and her trust and like she really invested. Like she said she was falling in love with him, like they had a like great chemistry, like everything about, you know, Ryan seemed to be like what she wanted and ideal, and he was, you know, making her like, he was like making her see like the, you know, other wonderful things in life, you know, outside of
like he was respecting her boundaries.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't mean to be creepy. I'm really into you. Like
he drank her spit.
Yeah. Like he starts off as like just like the perfect, like not perfect, everybody has imperfections, but like the ideal,
nice guy,
respectful, normal, you know, cute, funny guy that like every girl wants, or most women want. And then like to realize that he bore witness and subsequently gave no fucks about like the most horrifying thing that ever happened in your life.
Yeah.
is like earth shattering, you know? And then when confronted about it, completely flipped a switch and completely became a different person. Like he was like, well, I was a kid, like, you know, like all that respectful shit he was saying was like, it felt like niceties. It just felt like, you know, placating. It was almost like he was reading a script. Like he meant it in a way, but like it almost also felt like he was reading a script. Like, this is what I say to women in order to get them to trust me. And then the moment like the trust is gone, he showed his true colors. That's how I
don't feel like he was disingenuous in
No, I
their
don't either.
relationship. Like, I feel like that is who he is, but this part of him is also who he is. And like, they focus a lot on the fratty culture in society, but Bo Burnham is there for the men who are like, oh, I'm not fratty, I don't relate to this. But it's like, okay, well, then your character is supposed to be Bo Burnham, who does everything right, but then is still has this toxic nature in him because of like how we're raised, how our society is built. Like, you just have it unless you actively confront it.
He provided the movie with an element of like a romantic comedy almost. Like he turned the movie into a romantic comedy at a certain point, and the audience kind of forgets that like this was supposed to be a rape revenge thing.
No, I really did. I was like,
you just kind of
I was rooting for
like,
that.
oh, like I'm so happy that she found him and that they can, you know, she can find happiness and start to become herself again.
Like, if you just find the right man, your life's gonna be fine. And it's like, no.
That was like an actual twist.
Yeah.
Because I did not see coming, because I was like, but I also knew like it was too good to be true. I was like, something's gonna trigger her, like something's gonna like bring this all back to what we started with. I didn't think it would have anything to do with Ryan. Like, I really was in this false sense of security where I was like, oh, but he's so cute, like he's gonna have her back with like whatever, you know, whatever she ends up needing to do. I thought maybe like, obviously Ryan was invited to the wedding, but like maybe she would get an invitation or like something like that, where she's like
a red wedding situation.
Yeah, no, yeah. She goes full Game of Thrones, just annihilates the Starks. But no, it was like really like pulled me out of that rom-com. And I was like, I gasped like when I heard his voice.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't see it coming. Like, I was like in the same position as Cassie, where I was like, wow, like finally like a decent guy that you can rely on. And again, this isn't to say that every decent guy you come across is going to like has this dark past or like is going to ruin you, but it again, the casting was intentional, and it was scary. Like, I really was like, for a hot minute I was like, no one can be trusted. Like, I felt like Cassie, where I was like, okay, like all bets are off. Like, I think that was the moment where she was like, no, I cannot trust anyone in this world.
I felt myself starting to make excuses for him. Like, because I wanted him to be the nice guy. I wanted him to like be all the things I love about him, and like
just to go back to like the nice place that we were at like 2 scenes before.
Exactly. And just I don't know, it just showed like
I was feeling where it's like I wanted the tape not to be discovered because I didn't want it to be ruined. But once it was discovered, it's like you can't ignore that.
And it just shows like how ingrained it is. Like, even in like, I've had real world experiences with this where I have been around people who have been raped and sexually assaulted, and like, I understand, don't blame the victims, don't make excuses for people's behavior. Like, I know all those things, but it's still ingrained in me to be like, no, he was too young. Like, he's changed. I've changed since I was that age. And like, I don't know, there's still so much work to be done in everyone, and not just, it's not just men who need to fix the situation, but like, they have a lot of work to do. But like, there's a lot of stuff. Our entire culture needs to visit this and have these important conversations.
Yeah. So I guess from there we can dive right into the ending. We've been working our way here. Are we ready, ladies?
We've been fighting the urge to just dive right into the ending.
Play the toxic song.
Okay. When she
so good
gets out of the car and that string quartet of Toxic starts playing, I'm like, this is probably one of the most iconic things I've ever seen.
That look, that wig, that makeup was everything I wanted from this movie because it's in the trailer. And I was like,
Mhm.
where is this look? Where is this nurse outfit?
It's her
These,
Joker
like,
moment.
yes. I was like, where is it? And the moment I saw that wig, first of all, like Halloween costume, I'm
Absolutely. That's the
absolutely.
thing. I was like, oh, well, I'm a feminist and I don't have to be sexy for Halloween. But at the same
But
time,
like, I
want
want
to
to
wear
dress like that. But like, I'm already ordering the wig.
Yeah.
So when she gets to the door and Schmidt opens the door, all of the men in the bachelor party are wearing blue. I don't know if you noticed that. Just a fun fact.
What does it mean?
I don't know. I think it's just like the boy color. I don't know.
Okay, I like that.
Because she's very colorful. She's got her rainbow wig and is full of the personality that we know. And we come in and they're all like monotone. They're all the same. They're all the same.
I noticed like they're all wearing like jeans or khaki, like a
Mhm.
very basic like
Mhm.
dude outfits, like straight boy outfits.
Yeah. And so then she pretends to be a stripper and has them all get down on their knees and pours vodka into their mouth that's been laced with something. She takes Al Monroe upstairs. He's very sweet and very, I don't want to do anything. I respect my fiance, like we can just talk and whatever. She handcuffs him to the bed and then she starts to kind of reveal her plan.
Part of me is like, she definitely like knew there was a chance she was not going to make it out because
Mhm.
it's a house full of dudes.
Mhm.
She's pretending to be a stripper. So she got lucky in the sense that like she was able to drug all those other guys and like
Yeah.
so she probably thought she was getting away with it, like getting away as in like she wasn't going to get killed. But the faulty handcuffs like was like a chink in her armor. So I feel like she kind of like she didn't fail, but she kind of did in a way where she didn't get to do like the name, like she didn't get to like fulfill her plan. And it was interesting when I was watching this, one of the individuals I was watching it with, when Al Monroe like started to smother her, went, oh, that's fight or flight mode. And I was
Mhm.
like,
Self-defense.
interesting.
Well, that's part of the scene that's intentional, because this is the first time that we see Cassie bring violence into the room, essentially,
Mhm.
which is why I don't believe that she was going in completely believing that she was going to make it out. I don't think she was suicidal, but I
Mhm.
don't think that she was unaware that that was a possibility either,
Mhm.
because she
I agree.
knows how dangerous it is to be alone in a room with a man and to threaten them without violence, to bring a physical weapon into the room. That's why women don't threaten men with violence, because it can easily be turned against us, and that's what happens in this scene. I'm curious, like, what your first reaction was when that happened, like when she got smothered.
I feel like I appreciated the length of the scene.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
they do not let you look away from it. They're like just violence towards women.
Mhm.
And like that's what the whole movie's about. So the scene goes on for a really long time, which I appreciated. I didn't know if I wanted, like I was like, it makes sense that she died because that is what would happen in real life.
Mhm.
But I didn't know like what was gonna happen. So I was like, fuck, like the dude just gets away with it again. And then I was like, she was threatening to hurt him. So I understand his freak out to like defend himself. But then at what point could he have made the decision not to kill her?
Mhm.
At what point did it stop?
Was
Because
it
I was
not
like,
being self-defense?
stop being
Like, I don't know.
self-defense. And did he realize like if she gets out alive, like she can
Yeah.
really do damage to me? Like at what point was it like she's trying to hurt me, I'm trying to stop her? And does it become like
Like,
I'm
I
trying to
felt-
keep her from ruining my life?
Mhm.
I felt like he killed her for all those reasons, not just because he was scared in that moment, but I feel like he was like, just stop moving, is like, because that's what he kept saying, just stop moving. It was like his way of being like, just disappear from my life again. Let me
Mhm.
live a normal life without having to think about this anymore.
Because he's the only one that knew Nina's name when she
Mhm.
said it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so sad. It's sad that I can have so many, like I can relate to Al Monroe, but at the same time, I hate him. And I can relate to Cassie, but at the same time, I think she's wrong. And like, there's just so many emotions piled on top of each other, which I think is awesome. Like that's the beauty of storytelling, you know, and like this, like it's great, but I just don't know.
Well, what I thought was interesting about like, you know, the whole scene and the whole like sequence one was like, it really does show how long it takes to like suffocate someone.
Just quick interjection on that point. Emerald Fennell's father-in-law, like was a detective or something, and she asked him like, how long does it take to suffocate somebody? And it's approximately 2.5 minutes, and that's how long that shot was.
Really? I didn't time it, but that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But to like what you were saying about like, you know, Al Monroe and all that is like, I mean, I relate because it is like you don't know how you would react if like you were being threatened with like the sins of your past. Like, you know, granted, like hopefully we haven't done anything as egregious or as like detrimental as like what Al Monroe did, but like, you know, brought forth to light, like you don't know how you'd react. Like if you something you've suppressed for so long comes back to like bite you the night before you get married, the night before you're supposed to start your happily ever after. But what I found like interesting and like sad about the scene was like, well, the scene and then like, you know, the subsequent scene where like Al Monroe does get arrested, like he does get justice. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Was like the only time Cassie and then subsequently, you know, theoretically Nina, because now they have the tape, get justice is like when a murder happens, like when when a higher brow, if you will, if you'll let me be so bold to say, like a higher brow, like a higher valued quote unquote
severe
crime takes place, like when something more egregious. I'm like throwing these are all
no, absolutely. There's like I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts and they talk about like the less dead. So like women who are raped and commit suicide, sex workers who are murdered, like they are less dead. Those are crimes that like people don't care about as much because people don't care about women. Like if you're effeminate, like you're just not worth as much. Yeah, like it's just like you're not as important as a promising young man in his life.
It is very like conflicting because you're like, it is self-defense, but like what point does it stop becoming self-defense and start becoming self-preservation? And then when Schmidt, Joe, I think is the character's name, when Joe rolls up and is the conversation between Joe and Al.
When he says, it's not your fault, and then Al goes, I think it kind of is though.
He's like, I don't know, it kind of looks like it.
I don't know, it kind of is.
I love the bit where Joe was like, come on, the stripper's dead in your bed. What is this, the 90s? And then like he pulls back the pillow because he's a doctor. Like he knows, like he's like, when he was like touching, he was like, ha ha, ha ha ha. And then pulled back the pillow and he was like, what the fuck? Like, why is this, like when he was like, why is the stripper dead?
It's perfect Schmidt and New Girl. Like it's the same character, just, you know, less fun.
But yeah, the conversation was like very like, of course it was, the writing there was very intentional where it was like, this isn't your fault. She came and did this to you. Like you were defending yourself. Like it was very like echoing of probably what so many people have said, so many friends, so many relatives have said to victims of sexual assault, you know, like, and it's true. Like, I mean, all that's true to victims of sexual assault where like, this is not your fault. This is like something that somebody did to you who could not control themselves or whatever. But like,
but on the flip side of that, I think that's exactly what people say to the rapists and the assaulters. Like, I'm sure that's what Brock's family said to him.
You didn't do anything out of proportion. She just needs to forgive you and move on. You don't have to do anything in order to earn that forgiveness. She just needs to get over it, you know?
That's true too. I mean, I didn't think of it in watching it. I didn't think of it that way. I was thinking like the contradiction of that conversation between these two dudes who obviously are about to do something more horrible than what has already happened, which is
that's like the entire conversation of this movie. Like we see these nice guys that like men watching this can see themselves in these men, but then when they do something wrong, they, make excuses for those guys. Like, oh, well, it's not really their fault. She like attacked them. They, whatever, like make excuses to get themselves out of culpability and blame.
And like, I feel like people like would see this conversation and be like, oh, well, I would never cover up the murder with them. But it's like, I don't know, like everyone likes to think they would not, but like if that is your best friend and like it's a really scary situation, like you want to care for the people in your life. I don't know, like I thought of Goodbye Earl by the Chicks, formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, but they've changed their name. Where it's like they're two women best friend and they like team up to kill the abuser. And it's like, it's a funny song and you're like, yeah, go team. But like they did commit murder and it's because like they're best friends, And so like, that's kind of the same in this situation where it's like they're best friends. Schmidt was willing to be an accessory to a crime.
She was an object. She wasn't an actual person with like family and a life outside of being a stripper for them that one night.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like how real it is. Like it's very easy to be like, I would never do that. But if you really think about it, like, you don't know, things are hard and it's important to like have these conversations with your friends and family and yourself to like really figure out who you are. And yeah.
So they burn her body and we hear the Something Wonderful song. And then we go, that was originally going to be the ending after they burned the body. That's where it was going to be cut off.
That'd be way too dark for me.
Yeah.
I'd be really
the production companies were kind of like, hey, we got to leave them with something a little hopeful.
Very realistic, but very dark.
Yeah. Like I appreciate that Emerald was very realistic in that way, but I also appreciate the production people being like, I'm too sad.
Do you take
because originally when she wrote there was a time in the process of this movie forming that Emerald thought that Cassie would have her walking away from the burning cabin moment. She got her violent revenge and that's how the movie would end, on a really cathartic note. But then what ended up in the script was a very different ending where it ends with them burning her body. So now we kind of get a best of both worlds with a somewhat cathartic wedding sequence. How did we feel about this part?
The wedding sequence slayed me. Well, I wanted to touch for like a hot second on the burning body scene because it was like because I mean like Schmidt's in it. Like it was kind of funny. Like I was kind of laughing when he would like chuck the wig on and he's just like it's like he's standing on his lawn like observing the day. Like yeah, it's a human one, like that was his face where he's like like taking in the weather or whatever, not like burning a corpse. And Al Monroe was like, what? Like, and he kicks, Joe kicks the foot or her hand back into the pyre. And, Al's like, ugh! Like he's so sickened by like what they're doing. And it's like, okay, well, you started this, buddy. Like,
yeah.
Talk you into
No, absolutely. Like he, at any point could have turned himself in and said he's going along with it.
So I just thought it was interesting that it was like kind of a comedic moment, like just like the music, like it was like the very like lofty, like, yeah, the song from The King and I, like anytime like a modern movie has like some older like song in it, it is kind of like a funny scene. And then they, burning the body and they're like the expressions, like the timing, like it was all very comedic to me. And I kind of chuckled, like, when he like yeeted the wig onto the fire. I was like, it just made me laugh. It was like,
I feel like this was the most the movie calls itself a black comedy or whatever, a dark comedy. And I feel like I didn't get that a lot through the movie, but I did in this scene. Where it is like, it's a very serious thing, but you're also kind of like, wow, Schmidt, so funny.
But the wedding itself,
Schmidt running away at the end.
Yeah.
Like
the running
character.
away, that was the best. That made
no,
me
but just like the wedding and how
like
ridiculous it is. Like they're drumming and shit. Like Oh my goodness.
It was like very like rich white people
Yeah.
having like their interpretation of a backyard wedding.
Wait,
Um,
pause. Can we talk about Ryan not being truthful when the cops come to his office for just like a hot second?
When that scene, like, so when they were burning like the body, and I knew like when the cop came in, like, so the burning body happened, then the cop came in to talk to Ryan, and I literally said the first time I watched it to my roommate, I was like, I really hope Ryan redeems himself. Like, I really hope he comes forward and at least says where she went. At least like gives them that much information. And he didn't. And the cop was even kind of like,
I felt like the cop was leading him on. Like the cop was kind of like giving him a lot of details so he could dig himself out of it.
Yeah. Was kind of like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was kind of just like, yeah, I have to
He was telling
do this.
him a lot of information about the case that I was like, that's not what a good detective would do.
Right.
As a good detective myself.
Right, yes. As a fellow member of law enforcement.
I listen to true crime podcasts, I know. Yeah, I was very disappointed in the detective, and I was very disappointed in Bo Burnham, but I was also like, this is probs how it would go down.
Because I feel like Ryan kind of knew if she's missing, she's probably dead. Like he knew the people she was going up against, the number of dudes she was going up against. And it was kind of like a moment where he was like, oh, this is over. Like I can just say I don't know what happened and they don't have any proof otherwise. I'm good to go. Like the phone, she probably took the phone with her, you know, whatever. Like in that split second, he had that moment where he was like, I can work with this.
Yeah.
And again, that's why like Ryan as a character is so scary to me. Like in general, like anybody could be like this. It's not just like about, you know, the movie itself. It's like anybody could immediately be like, I don't have to take accountability. I don't have to accept responsibility for like my actions if the problem went away.
But then it was so good when you hear the sirens and the Angel of the Morning song is playing and you're just like, yes.
Well, the thing about the ending is like, this is what has been so controversial for people. Either they loved the movie and they hated the wedding sequence. They thought that it ruined the entire movie for them. And the first time I watched it, I kind of felt that way because I was like, this is cheesy. Like, this is like,
yeah,
I don't know about this. Like,
it felt very, what is that phrase? Like the ex machina type thing where you're just like, oh, well, our main character has enough foresight and knowledge and like planning to create justice immediately. Like, it's so happy how that worked out perfectly. And just like,
yeah,
that's
the two
probably
women
not
died
how
in
it would
order
have
for
happened.
in order for the cops to get involved, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for her to like send the tape to the lawyer and like have scheduled the texts, which don't know if that's true.
So the scheduling of the texts, I did think about that a lot where I was like, okay, how did she know? Like she was like, obviously she was prepared. Like she understood like the risks that she was taking on going into the situation, but how did she know she was going to like die? And I think it was one of those things where she planned all this out after she confronted Ryan and he turned on her essentially. And I think she was like, well, even if I do come out alive, like I don't want any more actual communication with him. So I'm going to do this in advance. I'm going to give the tape to the lawyer. And then if I, you know, in the event that I do make it out alive, like I can contact him and together we can go from there.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of like a contingency of like, won't I make it out? And if I don't, hopefully this works out. He gets this ominous message like, haha, you thought this was over. It's not. But if I do make it out, it's the final contact, like, haha, you thought this was over. It's not. I'm still alive and I'm going to come for your ass because you obviously didn't redeem yourself.
I was wondering, like, did she schedule a text and be like, hey, if I survive, like, I'll come back and cancel him real quick.
No, I think it was like, those are going out whether she lives or
no matter
dies.
what.
And she's like, that's the last I have to do with Ryan. Like, whether he sees it or not, like, I have planned it, so either way it kind of works. It definitely works more if she dies in kind of a fucked up way, because it's definitely more like from beyond the grave, like I'm coming down and I'm snatching your ass and you're going to hell. But if she lived, like it would have been more like a fuck you, you'll never hear from me again, but I wanted you to know on the day of the wedding that I gotcha.
Yeah.
And then I think it's interesting, you know, I mentioned it earlier about how like the police showing up at the end is not like a yay, the police are here to save the day. Like a lot of people are interpreting it that way. Like we know that the cops don't do anything. So like, why are they the heroes at the end? It's like, they're not, they didn't do anything. Like they came in at the last second after 2 women had already died.
Yeah.
So, and I think that it's interesting that she knew not to take what she had found to the police. She took it to a lawyer who was well
she's like
respected.
trusted.
Yeah. Who was well respected, who they would listen to him.
I agree.
Just all around great.
Yes.
I know.
We can kind of try to end on a happier note and talk about the colors and the aesthetic of the movie.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Just kiss.
I mean, it is very much like I Care a Lot, where you know I don't even want to say that the antagonist, anti-hero, if you will, like character that you know we're following through this journey is like very put together, very attractive, very like, and everything around her is like beautiful and bright and sunny, but she has this dark like undercurrent, like her, like everything under the surface is like so dark and so like tortured and so like in some ways malicious. Like I'm speaking about both movies, I Care a Lot and Promising Young Woman. And it kind of begs the question for this movie, who is the promising young woman? Was it Cassie, or was it Nina? Is it both? Is it all women who have faced this issue? Like they're all like all the women, you know, who have been affected by something like this, who have had their lives ruined. They're promising young women too. Like Brock Turner isn't like fucking God's gift to earth. I will shout that from the rooftops. But he's given this like demigod title essentially of like he can't be punished. He's
like he has so much to offer.
He has so much to offer, as opposed to
every other person who's been a victim of rape and sexual assault. Like they also have so much to offer. Yeah, the rapist, the assaulter should not be the priority.
Yeah, they show no promise except for nefarious deeds out on the streets.
I do think people can change, and I think there needs to be conversations and work done for change to happen. But
I mean, I think this movie is ultimately about forgiveness and when you deserve it, you know? Like if you are willing to look at yourself in the mirror and take responsibility for things that you've, you know, done or have been a part of, then there's room for that forgiveness and there's room for that growth, and for you as a person who's committed something to be, you know, still be a promising young man or woman. But you have to acknowledge what you did first and atone for it. You can't just demand forgiveness.
Yeah.
Or expect it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the entitlement, I think, is a big part of this movie. And, you know, I appreciate the nuance in this movie and the conversations that it's starting. And that's why I really, really liked it. But overall, what are your guys' favorite, like what's your favorite thing about this movie and what's your least favorite thing? And then we can wrap it up.
I think my favorite thing about this movie is just like how obvious but not all, like my favorite part was just like the obvious choices, like they would be obvious to like women or like other victims of sexual assault, like the choices that were made, like the nice guys, the cab driver not really giving a shit, you know, like all these people who like understand these things happen, but it doesn't happen to them, so they don't give a fuck. And like the conversations had and like how they're so real and so like commonplace, yet this issue still continues to happen. I would say my least favorite part, I wanted to know a little bit more about. I like that Nina wasn't in it. Like I like that there was no actual like physical representation of Nina, but part of me wishes that there was like a little more about her. So I wanted a little more of Nina, but like that's like my major critique, TBH.
Yeah, I just love the complexity of the film, all the different layers of emotion that that you feel about these characters, that they aren't super like one dimensional. They offer different layers and can relate to people differently depending on their own personal experiences. So I appreciate that, and the unapologetic like femininity of the film. I love that. But then the writing at times was just in and out for me. Like there were scenes that I really loved. I felt like it was strong. And then there were other scenes where I was like it's kind of taking me out of it. And I don't know, like there are, what I saw, let me know if I'm wrong. There were only 2 people of color in this film.
Mm.
One of them was Laverne Cox, which yes, I love Laverne Cox. Like, ugh, she's so good. She's so cool. And while I liked her character, I was disappointed.
Yeah.
I felt like she was just the token Black best friend. She's a trans woman, and like she doesn't have to talk and educate people about trans rights and stuff like in everything she does, you know. But trans women are so abused in this world that I was kind of disappointed that the narrative was still very much like white heterosexual. So like, and I don't know, like maybe they had those conversations, but I felt like that was kind of a missed opportunity for me.
I think that's a fair critique. I mean, it's a very real thing. And it's, when there's only 2 people of color in a movie, it's hard not to notice. But I do think that this was Emerald Fennell's story that she wanted to tell. And I think she knew that if she were to try and tackle, like, say, if Cassie was a Black woman, this is a very different story. Because there's a layer of, systemic racism on top of the patriarchal issues that are being tackled in this movie. So I think she knew that like she wasn't the right person to tell that story. Mm-hmm. And there are women out there, women of color and trans women out there who are, rising up in this industry that will get to tell those stories. I think that in this particular case, it might have been a missed opportunity. We could have had a little bit more of Laverne Cox's character.
Yeah.
Like given her a little bit more depth and involvement in the story maybe, but I don't think it takes away too much from the story that was being told. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I totally get that critique.
Yeah. And I think like the sad part is like I feel like the scenes with Laverne Cox, like with Gail, like the character, I feel like they were the most disjointed. And not to her fault. Like, she was hilarious. Like she did a great job. I think it was just like it was almost like the character itself. I was like, when she was talking to Ryan, Bo Burnham, when she was talking like, why are you killing children? Like it was supposed to be funny, but I was like, this is kind of just weird. Like I was just kind of like, I get it. It's supposed to be like the awkward, like you meet the friend before the first date or whatever, like interaction. But I was like, I feel like it could have gone in a different direction. And then the other scene, where she came in and she was like, I gotta get the phone, like, just kidding, bye. Like, I was like, I mean, it was cute, but at the same time, I was like, I felt like it like took me out for a hot second. Yeah. I was like, so I feel like Laverne Cox, phenomenal, like wonderful. Would have loved to see more of her in the film to make it more cohesive. Because like you said, like I really felt like it was kind of just those token moments where you're just like, here's a little spite, like here's a little like splash of Laverne, you know what I mean?
And I feel like that's just like the writing of the film. I felt like the writing had some issues for me.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think I already said appreciate the complexity and nuance of it. I think that it's a beautiful film. The soundtrack is iconic and
so good.
perfection.
So good.
Honestly, that's probably my favorite thing. That's not already been said. It's just the soundtrack.
It's a good one.
It is. It's amazing. It actually probably is my favorite part of the movie was the soundtrack.
Because it just sticks with you. It's just like so tailored perfectly to the movie. My least favorite thing, the ending was a tiny bit cheesy for me, even though I understand the motive behind it. I think it's just the like emoticon being like wink, that at the end is a little too.
I was like, I don't feel like Cassie's a winky kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if it was like the arrow and the 3, that would have been like maybe more her speed.
Yeah.
But that's like me being nitpicky. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is just me being nitpicky because I'm trying to find something that I don't like because I love almost everything about this movie. But with that, we've been going for like 3 hours, so we can probably wrap up this episode of Another Picture Show podcast. Katie, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you come back and do it again sometime soon.
Yes.
I
love our Katie time
all the time, so definitely.
Madeline, thank you for chatting with me again, as always.
Of course.
This is my favorite part of the week. So all of our hot takes and big thoughts on movies.
We need if we get big enough, we do merch. Like I'm going to trademark that trait. I'm gonna change our Instagram to say hot takes and big thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you guys both for chatting. I know this was a heavy one, but I'm glad that we had this discussion.
Important. Go read Know My Name by Sean Miller if you haven't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then comment, like, subscribe, follow.
just anyone. Just
support the pod.
Okay. So you can, if you enjoyed this conversation, you can listen to us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, all the places. You can also follow us on Instagram at Another Picture Show and on Twitter at Another Pic Pod. Comment below what you guys thought about the movie. DM us if you have suggestions for movies you want to hear us talk about. And we love any feedback that we get. So
there are so many platforms. You literally have no excuse not to engage.
Right.
With that, I will say good night. I love you, ladies.
Love you. Bye.
I love you.